Picture this. Your phone pings at 6 a.m. It's the chief financial officer. Ops budget slash 50%. KPIs unchanged. Good luck. Does that sound dramatic? Maybe. But anyone who's led through some up and down market swings knows that that email, or one just like it, is just a quarterly review away. What makes or breaks next is how fast you translate that panic into possibility. Hey there, I'm Alex Kalish, and this is Practical Prompting, the podcast that turns generative AI hype into everyday wins. Each episode follows a two-act play. Act 1 tackles a real-life headache with a single deep dive in how you can use generative AI to help. Act 2 zooms out to the bigger picture and how you can use that at work. This episode of Practical Prompting is for executives. It's a limited run inside of Practical Prompting feed designed for leaders in mind who maybe don't have the time to ride that AI hype train. You need concrete business value right now. Today's Act 1 spotlight, household constraints. We're going to take 4 people, $80, and get 1 week of dinners. Ready, go. For Act 2 spotlight, we're going to zoom out and use this as a way to establish constraints and highlight how that can drive business value. So if you're into actionable nerdness served with a side of dad jokes, grab your coffee, open up your favorite chat window, or if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, and let's get prompting. Practical prompting. So in our Act 1 today, I want to talk about household constraints. So how you can think about and open up the possibilities that generative AI brings to the table when you start asking it to constrain what you're doing. So let's shrink this down into a family scale. Got 4 people and we've got $80. And we're looking for 1 week of dinners. Also, nobody wants to eat ramen noodles all night or every night, and certainly nobody just wants peanut butter and jelly. So there's a couple different ways you can approach this. You can ask ChatGPT or some sort of generative AI system to act like a grocery savvy friend and to craft what should we buy and how should we do it. You can go through and type all that out. However, the better use here is to actually ask these generative AI solutions to craft you a prompt. So that's what I did. I said, craft me a prompt, which would feed a family of 4 people using $80, 1 week of dinners where no dinner is more than 30 minutes of cooking. 1 sentence. What it came back with was a page-long component of how it would analyze and get to the output. So here's what the generative AI actually came to the table with in terms of a prompt that I'm going to run and see what it comes up with. So it says, role, you're a thrifty home chef and meal planning expert. Objective, feed a family of 4 people 4 dinners for 7 nights on a total budget of $80 or less with, what does that say? It says with no single dinner requiring more than 30 minutes of active cooking time. Deliverables, 7-night dinner menu, dish name, 1-sentence description, estimated hands-on cooking time, again, less than or equal to 30 minutes. Brief note if leftovers can be repurposed for lunch. Number 2, step-by-step cooking instructions for each dinner, max 6 concise steps. Number 3, consolidated shopping list, group items by grocery aisle location, produce, dairy, pantry, etc. Include approximate cost per item and running subtotal that proves we stay under $80. Assume typical U.S. supermarket prices and note any smart substitutions if regional prices vary. Number 4, prep ahead tips. Call out any 5-minute night or night before or weekend tasks that make weeknights faster. Highlight cross-dinner efficiencies. For example, cook extra rice on Monday for Wednesday's stir fry. Number 5, nutritional snapshot, optional but helpful. High level macros per meal, protein, carbs, fat, or a simple balanced veggie forward kid friendly tag. Constraints: limit specialty spices or one-off ingredients. Lean on versatile pantry staples, salt, pepper, oil, basic herbs. Avoid recipes demanding niche equipment. Assume a basic stove, oven, and one skillet. Keep instructions beginner friendly and omit culinary jargon. Humor welcome, but don't sacrifice clarity. Output format: use Markdown with clear headings for each section. Present the final grocery bill tally in bold. Feel free to ask clarifying questions before generating the plan if needed. And so I just said, run this prompt. That was all the prompt that happened with one sentence. Again, my sentence was, craft me a prompt which would feed a family of 4 people using $80, 1 week of dinners where no dinner is greater than 30 minutes of cooking. I used ChatGPT's O3 model, which is a reasoning model. However, you can get similar levels of results across generative AI platforms. And so what I got back was a list of Monday through Sunday, a dish, chicken fajita rice skillet, 1 pan, chicken, peppers, onions, hands-on time, 25 minutes. Tuesday, sheet pan sausage and veggies. Wednesday, speedy peanut butter noodles. Thursday, barbecue chicken sandwiches. Friday, tuna melt quesadillas. Saturday, chickpea coconut curry. And Sunday, 30-minute turkey and bean chili, skillet cornbread. All of them are, the longest was 30 minutes, and that was the 30-minute turkey and bean chili. So it talks about the step-by-step instructions, and it goes through, okay, the Monday, it says Monday first, and it's like the prep, dice 1 chicken breast, heat the olive oil, just all like goes into the minutes that are used. So this, I'm not going to go through the entire how to make it. Let's go to the shopping list. Consolidated shopping list talks about bell peppers, onions, peppers, potatoes, zucchinis, carrots, romaine hearts, cilantro bunch. We're at $16.50 across the veggies. Meat, fish, and eggs is at $21. Chicken breast, smoked sausage, ground turkey, canned tuna, large eggs, rice, all the way down. So now we're getting into the pantry type stuff, $27. And the estimated total grocery bill is $69.99. Another 10, and it included a $10 cushion for taxes, price swings, and emergency pizza. Does assume like olive oil, mayo, vinegar, honey, sugar, chili powder, cumin, like just pantry staples. Talks about prep ahead. The nutritional snapshot gives just a 3-star rating across and a quick note. So there's some balanced, kid-friendly, hearty, veggie forward, vegetarian, high satiety. And then it's 7 fast dinners. So this was all in the span of minutes tops. I mean, we're talking 1 minute maybe to ask generative AI to craft me a prompt, run that prompt, and get exactly what I'm looking for with just a couple constraints. It was, you have $80, you have a week-long meals and 4 people and less than 30 minutes to make those meals. With those constraints, it was able to exceed my I didn't even know if it could do this. This was the first time I tried giving something like this a go. So when you think about constraints in a household setting, you can ask it to do things that you didn't think were possible. I didn't write this prompt as like a masterpiece. It was craft me a prompt to do the thing that I want. And it was hugely helpful. The lesson here isn't about meal plans. It's about stacking constraints and how that forces prioritization for generative AI tools. The model is going to swap things that maybe you might miss when your brain's spinning on 100 different tasks and be able to centralize that information into what you're looking for. This can be used from a budgetary standpoint. It can be used from a time standpoint. It can be used from a chores or like the prep that's required. Could be used from I'm not familiar with this tool, or I don't have these tools in the kitchen. So there's a lot of different constraints that you can layer on here that I didn't include this time. But again, start with thinking about, hey, can GenAI do this? That's the most important step. The second thing is just craft me a prompt to try this out and see what you get. Let's move on to Act 2, which is, again, this is executive focused right now. And why does this matter at scale? So when you talk about just the general life cycle across a large organization, a small organization, any mature business is going to hit that half budget moment. Maybe it's an economic shock or some sort of board requirement, some sort of activist investor. The thing is, like, startups now are being born with generative AI baked in and will weaponize it against you if you're not prepared for that. And you're not leveraging the same tools for your own advantage, because it's never been easier to capture constraints and start leveraging insights and functional tactical action strategy that would have taken years, thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of consulting dollars to get that same level of insight. And you can do it in minutes or hours with just some well-placed constraints and expanding your own understanding of what generative AI can do. So instead of, I'm just using it to summarize an email, you're now establishing constraints in your business that maybe you never thought would be possible. So one of the things I recently did is there was a 12-month planning for how much headcount should go into various tasks. And there was a bunch of just off-the-wall ideas, which were fantastic for this large team. And some of those things were just projected not being able to happen in the next 12 months because there wasn't enough headcount for it. However, all of that information, all of those good ideas were on a page. And what I walk this executive through is how to take all of that rich data set and turn it into something that just blew the socks off, things that weren't even possible before. So I asked, hey, let's break this down into a bunch of small steps. So I used the best prompt that I have, the one that I reuse. People ask me all the time, oh, do you have a prompt library? And the answer is no. I use the craft me a prompt to do something technique. The exception to that is that there is a prompt which breaks down the task into a bunch of different prompts. It sets the context for a goal that you put in, and you just describe the goal colloquially. You say, hey, I'm an executive at this company. I'm trying to do this. I want to see what I can do in terms of budgetary. I want to double my revenue in a year, or I want to be able to do 1.5x as much volume as before. By establishing that goal, this reusable prompt breaks up that goal into 10, 15, 20 different prompts. That the second step of this reusable prompt architecture is, okay, I want to run these one at a time. I want you to check with me after each one, and I'll layer in additional information, or I'll just say next prompt. And what this reusable prompt does is it breaks down this really extensive, multifaceted goal into a bunch of steps, 10, 15, 20 steps. And it goes through each individual prompt and it runs them. And as this chat continues moving downwards and downwards on the prompt level, you get more and more extracted context, and you can layer in more and more context. So for instance, maybe the first couple are around getting a landscape of what's going on or the current state of things. Well, that's a great point to upload files about how much revenue or how many headcount or the basics of what you're trying to get done. And then as time goes on, those prompts are going to get more and more tailored towards, okay, let's craft a path forward. So this reusable prompt, I walked this executive through how to use it. And the goal here was to analyze this list of potential projects that are going to happen in the next 12 months and the amount of headcount that was assigned to each project. And then to extrapolate out what would happen if we just assumed that generative AI was used across each one of these projects. How would it be used and what type of value could be extracted by using it? How much faster could we go? Or let's analyze the amount of headcount that was assigned to each project or system. And so this set of prompts went through, and it was 10, I think it was 15 different prompts that it went through. And by the end, it was analyzing each individual project. It was saying, here's specifically how generative AI can assist this team and why the amount of people that they're asking for doesn't make sense in a generative AI environment. And you could probably do it with 30% less people. Oh, and you could do it 6 months sooner. Some of them were 6 months sooner. Some of them did take 12 months. But this was a jaw-dropping moment. This was the FTEs, so the full-time equivalent headcounts were dropping. And the throughput or the speed was increasing. And it was an eye-opening moment. And this was just, again, by establishing constraints, by saying, what if we were to look at this and challenge the team based on how generative AI could be used by team members? Now, this does require generative AI being a huge component of those team solutions. But with the proper training, like, you can make that happen. It's real. Teams can extract the same type of value from this strategy, but applied to an individual project level. So another idea that you can use this for is just having a conversation with the model and not getting into, hey, let's try and code a solution, but just talking with generative AI. And you can actually talk now in terms of some of the diction components. And you just say, hey, our service level agreement, our SLA floor is 95%. Safety can't dip, our KPIs have to remain the same, but our headcount's frozen and I want to get more value this year. I want to increase revenue by 1.5x. How can we actually go about doing this? Craft me a prompt which enables me to analyze these goals and double or 1.5x our revenue in the next 12 months. What does that look like? What needs to happen in order to achieve those goals? Craft me a prompt to do this. Now, the goal here isn't for a perfect prompt, because you don't need a perfect prompt here. You need to think about going to generative AI and asking these open-ended questions, using it as a brainstorming, as a executive that's sitting right next to you who also happens to be an expert in looking around corners and implementing generative AI within your teams. And you can walk away as an executive with tactical, detailed plans on how to achieve a goal that just frankly seems outrageous and audacious. And now with that plan in hand, you can then tailor the messaging to your team members. You can start working on the KPIs and the structures, the mechanisms that you'll put in place in order to achieve that, the people that you would need to hire, or the skill sets that you would need to grow on your team in order to achieve those goals. But again, the key here is speed to insight. You don't need to have a perfect prompt in order to get the insight that you're looking for and the strategy that's needed. And so by approaching it from a, did I get what I was looking for? That's a really important component, because you can go down these rabbit holes where you're just going back and forth and executing strategy versus, wow, we can do 1.5x our performance this year. How do we do that? Here's the tactical starting point, and then work with your teams in order to get that firmed up and completed. So the key thing to think about is that generative AI isn't trimming line items here. It's just redefining our operating models. So when you think back to finance before Excel, finance was on ledgers and pieces of paper, and it was a lot of manual calculation, but people started thinking about, hey, what if we started using finance in this new tool and going to that tool frequently throughout all of those discussions? And now all of a sudden it's indistinguishable from a lot of the financial analyses that are out there. We're at the same paradigm shift right now in generative AI. It's not enough to just use it for email summarization here, or a paper there, or to craft some sort of narrative, some sort of PowerPoint, analyze a meeting agenda and prepare for it. Sure, those are all super valuable, but thinking about going to generative AI as an executive and approaching it from a strategic standpoint, where you establish these strict constraints and you put forth goals and constrain the model in a way that forces generative AI to think outside the box. And you could even say that, hey, think outside the box on how to achieve these audacious goals. So if you ignore where we're at right now, there are startups right now using generative AI, and they're extracting expertise that otherwise would cost hundreds of thousands annually for an expert in the field, or thousands, tens of thousands of dollars as a consultant to come in and provide those level of insights. And when you have, don't get me wrong, a two-person startup is going to be hard pressed to hit a behemoth in the same realm. However, they will start clawing out some of the moat that you've created in your business, because they're starting to think outside the box. They're leveraging generative AI to say, okay, I want a 1.5x revenue. I want to double revenue. I want to triple it in the span of 3 months. How do I do that? What do I need to do from a search engine optimization or a discoverability? How do I start crafting cold emails to new clients and clawing them away from the entrenched businesses? And this is what's possible now. Being able to radically shift our mentality as executives, going from I know the answer or I need to use my brain to I'm still using my brain and using my experiences, but I'm also layering in a generative AI component which can significantly change the output of a strategic discussion by, again, put an audacious goal out there. So if you have a 1.25x goal for the end of the year, ask generative AI, what would it take to do a 2x goal? You can feed it, here's my strategic plan for 1.25x this year. How would I make this a 2x goal? How would I achieve that across the year? What would need to happen? And without any KPIs falling off the mark and assuming no increased headcount. Now, that type of mentality is something that I'm seeing across senior leaders. People just aren't thinking about yet. And it behooves you, you're missing the boat right now if you haven't already jumped on board. There are people doing this. And if you're not among them, that's great. You're in this, you're listening right now, and you're thinking in different ways. Start going to generative AI and asking it audacious goals. So a couple things that you can output from these brainstorming sessions is a one-page KPI delta sheet. Where do we need to change in order to achieve what our goals are? You can talk about building some sort of vendor bid matrix based on auto ranking associated with ROI. So instead of going line by line, you're leveraging generative AI's deep research capabilities to grab appropriate vendors and project what they would potentially cost to achieve your goals. And maybe even setting up introductory emails or calls saying, hey, I'm interested in this. Here's the link. And all of this can be just delivered to you after doing this strategic component of constraining generative AI and asking it to double revenue. It can also talk about risk scores. So you can ask it to risk or do a risk and probability analysis across your business associated with leveraging generative AI or the business model that you're operating under, and come up with mitigation measures for that. All of these take the output that you've already worked on and layer in additional business components. And you can think of probably 10 or 15 more once you have a detailed roadmap of how to double revenue. And you just take that detailed roadmap, feed it back into generative AI in a different chat, ask generative AI to craft you a prompt that analyzes this roadmap and identifies risks or safety components, or creates a vendor matrix of who you should talk to first in order to make this happen, or crafting tactical details across the different organizations that this plan entails. All of these are possible now because you've thought to go to generative AI first. You've thought to layer in some amount of constraints and set an audacious goal. And with those components, you can move the business forward at the speed that startups are moving right now. Even with entrenched large businesses, I've seen with my eyes the light bulb go on in people once you start thinking about generative AI first, once you start layering it in as a core component of the workplace. And as executives, it's on you to make that change happen, because the responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility on your plates is the longevity and continued increase in your businesses. And you are directly responsible for either missing this train or getting on the train. So this is your homework. I want you to pick one constraint that keeps you up at night. Maybe that's staffing, maybe it's travel, marketing, financial revenue, whatever the case may be, and throw it at generative AI. Don't polish the prompt, just talk. Ask generative AI to craft you a prompt that takes your just free-form thoughts and articulates a path forward. Screenshot it. Send it to me on LinkedIn. Again, Alex Kalish, Kalish. And we can build this gallery of half budget, double revenue wins across large organizations. Additionally, I want to put it on your calendars to email alex@loloai.com. So that's alex@LOLOLAI.com. With your questions. What do you want to talk about next? What keeps you up at night? And or just to schedule some coffee chat. I'm happy to talk through some of the lessons I've been learning in this space, training thousands of workers, dozens of executives at this point, and almost into hundreds, and establishing this pathway into the future as organizations grapple with, there's a lot of hype around generative AI, but you can extract significant business value by rethinking how you're approaching work. And you don't need some sort of customized solution in order to make this happen. You can just grab an enterprise license of ChatGPT, which won't be trained on your data that you provide to it. Everything can be wiped. There's SSO, so single sign-on, and security encryption of data transfer, data in transfer, as well as data at rest. And you could do all of this in the span of minutes and days versus waiting for some sort of future nebulous state where somebody has talked about, we're going to build this solution internally. Or you can start extracting value and changing the way you work now so that when that internal solution becomes available and reaches parity with the current tools that are out there, you're ready for it. Because right now it's about mindset shifts. So next up, I'm going to be talking a little bit about pressure testing both risk and compliance with board level speeds, because savings doesn't mean anything if you're not approaching governance appropriately. And people throw out governance all the time. Think about it in terms of, if you ask generative AI to build you a software tool or to analyze all of the credit card usage for your organization and customers. And it does that, but it posts all of that information online. That is a failure of governance, because while it was a really good idea, without a key couple risk mitigation measures and governance compliance measures, generative AI can take all of your information and upload it into just a public repository without you realizing it. There's some easy key ways of preventing that from happening, but you have to think to do that. And you have to make sure that instead of using the top of the line agents for everything, you're establishing proper controls where generative AI is touching base with you throughout the entire process. So with that, we're going to continue on next week with the kind of practical prompting for executives. And until then, remember, it's not the perfect tool that matters. It's not the perfect prompt that matters. It's the habit of asking better questions, of thinking to go to generative AI in the first place. That's the habit to form. I look forward to talking soon. This has been Practical Prompting, the Executive Edition.